Hello, my name is Olivia Salazar de Breaux, and I'm an Equity and Inclusion Coordinator here at the City of Olympia. I'm also the staff lead for a new advisory commission that's helping the city dismantle institutional racism and oppression. Alongside me leading this process is the founding members work group, all people of color, that are so committed to ensuring that this process is reflective of what the community needs. We want Olympia to be a place where we all belong, where we feel heard and acknowledged, and where we will all thrive. We have to face the fact that institutional racism and oppression exists here in Olympia. These are the structures in place by government that keep people of color and other marginalized groups from having the same opportunities. Take, for example, housing. Redlining was in place until the 1970s, which kept people of color from owning homes in certain areas. And there are still discriminatory covenants to local property deeds and plots that are used to restrict anyone other than white residents to be allowed to occupy homes within these subdivisions. If we are to change institutional racism and create an equitable city, we need to call these practices out, and we need to correct them. The most important part of this process is happening right now, where we will be engaging with all of you, our community, through focus group sessions, through a larger community session, and through our Engage Olympia webpage. We as a community need to collectively share stories, to grieve and to heal and to problem solve. You are the experts, and institutional racism cannot be solved without you. Your input will directly affect how this commission is built through the name, the work plan, the objectives. This is just the first step of many towards a more equitable city, and it'll continue to support the framework for how we do things from here on out in the future. In a minute, you'll be hearing from our council members, and they'll be able to express just how important this work is for us personally and for the city. So thank you so much for being a part of this process and for helping make this a more equitable city for your family and for mine.
These conversations have never been more crucial. Olympia likes to pride itself on being a progressive community, accepting of diversity, and so it's really hard to think of us not being welcoming and accepting to everybody. And that's the mirror that we need to have held up to us right now. And having the voices of our marginalized communities centered in that conversation has to happen. I want to encourage you to work with us. I know it's uncomfortable. We need to be uncomfortable, all of us, but it's important more now than ever that we lead with brutal honesty. It's we tend to want to always be polite and say what we think people want to hear, but we need to be brutally honest. But we also need to balance it with credible hope. So this process of engaging around these conversations of diversity, equity, and inclusion are ones that I welcome you to. I will be there, this council will be here. The staff of this city are firmly committed to making Olympia a place that's truly safe and welcoming for all.
Your stories will start a journey for the city that's long overdue. We are going to tackle our institutionalized racism, something this country has avoided doing for 400 years. Olympia, if we want to be the city that we think we are, that we can be, we have to listen to your stories, we have to hear you, and we have to take your stories and build a plan that will get us there. This will not be short. You cannot correct 400 years in 6 months. This may be our work for decades to come, but your voices are going to start us on that journey. And we will listen, and we will respect you, and we'll honor your bravery for coming and talking to us in this process. You will be the start of our journey. You will be the originators of our plan. And that plan is so important to Olympia to get us and our entire city to where we want to be and where we think we need to be.
Racial justice and equity are important to me because I feel like it's my job. I feel like it's the role of the city and me as an elected official My family cares about the outcomes and the experiences that our Black and Brown and Native neighbors have in our community. And we want them to have a better experience and live a better life and live the same life that we find ourselves able to make for our family. Whether it's experiences in the criminal justice system or how much they make it work, or just what neighborhood they can live in. It's not a fair system, and I'm committed to both personally and as a policymaker having our community be a better place and doing whatever it takes to get us there.
Racial justice and equity is so important to our city. It's intrinsic in the city's policy making. We can only be successful when we understand the community in which we serve. We must understand how people identify, understand what they value them, understand what they need in order to be supported, and we must truly listen. This work is going to be hard, it's going to present challenges, differences will arise, and it'll certainly be uncomfortable, but it's so important. It must be embedded in all levels of city leadership, departments. We must hear people and listen to what they're saying, and only through racial justice and true equity will our city be successful.
Why is racial justice and equity important to me personally? It's something that's almost gone beyond words for me over the years as I've learned more. I moved to Olympia 20 years ago from Spokane, where I grew up, and to me, racism back then, as a white person, was reading stories about white supremacist extremism, particularly in North Idaho next door. But so growing that, I had a really surface understanding of racism, and saw it as something, as long as I'm not a hateful person, it's someone else's problem, and we need to change these other people. Coming out and going to school out here, I had the opportunity to learn so much more from other students and from teachers about how deep-seated racism is in our history and in our institutions. And it went over the years from this intellectual knowing to moving into the heart. And to me now, why it's important to me personally, it's a deep-seated feeling in me that things are fundamentally not right. And I've, through a lot of my work in the community, have come around to this idea that what this work is building the beloved community for all and a future for all. I've got nieces and nephews, little kids that I want a future for, and we can't get to that future without healing our past. So it's important to me that I do this work because it's been a lot of personal growth for me. It's been the awareness that racial justice is about lifting everybody up, not just pointing the finger at who's doing it wrong, and not just thinking of a special group that needs help, right, as a savior, but we're lifting everybody up. And I think that's so important as individuals and as institutions to tackle this work.
What I would like people to know that as they share their personal stories, that we are here to listen and to learn. I know that I want to be listening because I don't know what I don't know, and I am willing and prepared to act on what needs to happen to make Olympia work for everybody. And I'm also very grateful that you are part of this community.
The work that Olympia is taking on around racial justice and equity is so important to me because I want this city to be a city where every kid growing up has the opportunity to be the things that they can be, and that we don't leave anybody behind.